So we just talked about slide structures in very typical formats in consulting slides. And this was all mainly referred to slides where you have a lot of text or illustrations. But as you know, in management consulting, we also do a lot of analysis and work with data. So this means that very often in consulting slide decks, we include a lot of graphs. And there are certain things and certain aspects that you need to be aware of if you build graphs in PowerPoint slides. And believe me, this is something that many people make wrong at the beginning, but still also after a couple of years of experience. And this is also something that you very often see, that especially those graphs are not illustrated in a proper way. So in this lecture, I want to talk about the most important aspects of consulting slides if you want to include some graphs. And there are several different aspects that we need to talk about. So the first one is that each graph needs a chart description. And this is probably the most important, because if you cannot detect very quickly what the chart illustrates, then it's just not very well built, this chart. And what you typically have is that you include a description. So in our case, if you want to show the profitability of a company, then you could just say profitability of company XYZ. This could be your chart description. Then what you also need is that you need to illustrate the units and the time period, because it's always very important in what kind of unit this is. Is it in US dollars? Is it in thousands of US dollars? Is it in millions of US dollars? This is very important that people know how to interpret the chart, and also that you include the time period, because very often, of course, there are several data points and you need to highlight what kind of time period this is. And the chart description and the units and time period together show the reader very quickly what the chart shows. And this should actually cover everything that the reader needs to know in order to understand what the key elements of this graphic are. So typically you have that on the top of this graph, but you can also do it on the side or somewhere else. I usually like to just write it above the chart. What you also have is that you include a legend or a chart key. This is especially important if you have several color codes in your graph. So maybe you want to show the profitability of the company over time, but you also want to see, okay, what kind of regions contribute to the profitability. So you use different color codes within this bar that you show. And then you need, of course, a legend that explains, okay, what kind of color code refers to what region. Okay, so don't forget to include the legend or the chart key. Then very important, very crucial, don't make the mistake to forget that, is that you also include the source. So because, of course, the reader wants to know, where did you get the data from? Have you made any adjustments? Is this based on a internal source, maybe an external source? This is very important that you include that. And last but not least, very important that you also include other information. So maybe if you have some assumptions that you show there, maybe if you made some adjustments, you can put that all into the footnote or the comment section, and just to give a little bit more context for the graph that you want to show. As I said at the beginning, always keep those elements in mind. Do your homework and double check every time you send out a slide deck with a graph if you have included the headline, the units, the time period, the source. This is very important, because believe me, especially if there is a more intense project phase, if you don't have much time to build the slides, this is something that you forget very often. And believe me, your project manager or your teammates will send you the slide back and ask for adjustments. So keep a checklist of those aspects, make it a habit to always include those aspects we talked about, and this will make your life much easier.